Hey, everybody. This is Lunch with Lincoln. It is noon in the East. It is 9 a.m. here in the West Coast, where I happen to be today. My name is Reed Galen, co founder of the Lincoln Project, and with my co host today, Jeff Timmer from Michigan. Jeff, how are you?
I am great, Reed. It's nice to be talking with you.
No, it's good. It's great to have us both on here. All right. So, uh, Jeff, a couple of things. One, 99 days from Election Day. All right. It's hard to believe. You and I have been through this enough to know that it feels like Election Day is never going to come, and then boom, you hit that century mark, and before you know it, it's all rolling downhill like a roller coaster, right? So um, we've got a lot to do, not a heck of a lot of time left to do it. So let's talk about what's going to happen tomorrow in your home state of Michigan, what's going to happen down in Arizona, what's going to happen in Missouri, Washington State, and then what all that means for November.
Sure. Well, let's start with Michigan, where Donald Trump made some news heading into the weekend. Late Friday night, he endorsed vampire porn actress Tudor Dixon in the Republican primary for governor.
And we'll describe more of that on our new show, Lincoln Project After Dark. So
right. What Trump has done here is what he's done in most places, and that's see a parade and jump out in front and take credit for leading it. She was likely to win. All the signs were pointing in that direction. The money, the institutional support had lined up on her side. She's just MAGA enough and campaigning just MAGA enough that she was still appealing to some of the MAGA crowd. So she kind of bridges that gap to the extent there is any that remains between traditional kind of Chamber of Commerce Republicans, MAGA Republicans, but also where she brings kind of ties it all together is with the evangelical, the Taliban sect of the Republican Party, because she really is outside the mainstream when it comes to issues like abortion, outside the mainstream even among Republicans, in that she ban abortion in cases of rape and incest. She did an interview where she proudly talked about how, she'd have a 14-year-old carry a baby all the way to term, which puts her outside of the mainstream of where Republican nominees for governor have been, at least in Michigan in the past. And so it shows how the needle has kind of moved, normalizing what would have previously been abnormal. We've got the forces of the kind of the last vestiges of the rebellion in the Republican Party. John Engler, the Chamber of Commerce, those folks have lined up with Tudor Dixon because she's the one who doesn't paint her face with blood before she goes out and does her campaign rallies like the rest of them.
Yeah. Well, I think Dixon too, though, is one of those interesting things where you're right. She's got the Englers. She's got as I assume, some of the business community. She's got Trump. She's got the DeVos family, right? Betsy DeVos, famously of the Secretary of Education, Amway, her brother, Eric Prince, the founder of Blackwater, right? But also, as you said, she's just MAGA enough. But is that enough with the ultra MAGA Republicans? Because you and I were talking earlier today that Garrett Saldano and what's the other guy's name?
Ryan Kelly, the guy who got
arrested. Ryan Kelly, who's literally was arrested by the FBI for being at the Capitol on January 6th. They're the ultra MAGA. And you said something which was, if one of them had dropped out, it was likely that they would win because they would capture enough of the MAGA vote. But they didn't, obviously, not surprisingly. But what does that mean for a Tudor Dixon in the fall? Because the one thing that we've seen with the ultra MAGAs is that they want somebody that they absolutely love and believe is pure, or they want somebody who in office they can absolutely hate. And Dixon, if she is able to bridge this, I guess Youngkin did it in Virginia. But, he was a very disciplined candidate, right? He was able to campaign in Northern Virginia as sort of a Mitt Romney guy, and in Southern Virginia as a Trump supporter. Can a Tudor Dixon pull that off in a state like Michigan?
It's hard to say. She is really untested. She's first-time candidate, never run for anything before. She has acquitted herself okay when she's done scripted events, and she does heavily scripted kind of events. It's going to be interesting to see how she does in the glare of the general election spotlight. I will give credit to her team. She has a smart campaign team, but they can only work with what they got. So far, it's been good enough. It's going to be interesting to see how she stacks up against somebody who's become a really excellent campaigner, Governor Gretchen Whitmer, who's, I think, running one of the best campaigns by a Democrat in the country. Where Dixon is going to run into, the first test is going to be the selection of her lieutenant governor nominee, which is elected at a party convention later in August.
God.
So that is where you have to eat horse paste in order to enter the convention. And so this is the same convention that nominated Christina Caramo for Secretary of State, who thinks demons are transmitted by sex, and Matt DePerno, who's one of the big lie perpetrators. But those
we're going to call that the Alex Jones wing of the GOP.
Right. And so, but that's who the convention is going to demand is one of their own, one of those ultra magas, a Garrett Soldano, somebody like that, is likely to be her running mate, which is going to make, look, the Republicans want to run Glenn Youngkin everywhere. They want to pretend that all these candidates, from Doug Mastriano to Tudor Dixon to Carrie Lake, all wear these Patagonia vests, when in fact they're honest to God certifiable loons. That's what they've got to run with in states like Michigan, and looks like in Arizona as well.
So before we move to Arizona, I just want to say one thing you noted about what Tudor Dixon said about abortion. No exceptions for rape and incest, life of the mother, which we're seeing now, is having a real life effect on both American women and American girls. And this is one thing that I wanted to just note, Jeff, is down in Ohio, right? The 10-year-old little girl was raped. She shouldn't get an abortion in Ohio, so she went over to Indiana. And this is where I think it's really important for everybody to understand, like, first of all, a 10-year-old is not a young woman. It's a little girl, right? Second, this happened, and then the right-wing outrage reactionary media machine said it was a hoax, right? So they were willing to sacrifice this little girl's future, both physically, emotionally, personally, family-wise, everything else, at the altar of their whacked-out belief system, Jeff. And I just have to say that if they'll do it to a 10-year-old little girl, they'll do it to your little girl, and they'll do it to anybody, right? The Wall Street Journal, Fox News, all of these people go out of their way to say it's a hoax, right? Go out of their way to say it's a hoax. And then, the local news reporting team, and thank God for them, said, no, this actually happened. But think about how quickly the idea of a hoax took hold. And they were willing to put this little girl on the altar of MAGA, right, for their own purposes, because they knew it was bad for them. And I think that's what we should not let a Tudor Dixon away from, which is you're going to do this. You're going to do this to little girls, because it's not just about women and the choices they should be able to make for themselves. It's about what they're willing to do for their own aspirations to power.
Yeah. In Michigan, unlike other states that I'm aware of in November, there's going to be a constitutional amendment ballot proposal before voters this November, sponsored by Planned Parenthood, to put abortion rights into the state constitution. So as much of an issue as abortion is going to be everywhere, it's going to be that much more of an issue in Michigan, with tens of millions of dollars being spent on both sides on this ballot proposal. So the candidates for governor or any other office aren't going to be able to escape talking about this ad nauseum through the fall. And just Gretchen Whitmer has really staked the terms of the debate. She has sued, brought a suit before the state Supreme Court, asking them to weigh in on the right to privacy, even in advance of that constitutional amendment. A judge had earlier this summer issued a stay on when Dobbs, the ruling came out. Judge issued a stay preventing county prosecutors from enforcing Michigan's criminal abortion statute that's on the books. Today, just this morning, that was overturned. County prosecutors can now bring abortion cases in Michigan. So it's a big issue And there's current events happening here in the state that is going to keep it a very hot issue through the fall.
Well, and they also, of course, if there's anything they love more than chaos, I'm not sure what it is. And that also just introduces that chaos. All right, so let's go down to the sun-baked desert of Arizona. There's a gubernatorial primary on the Republican, well, on both sides, but on the Democratic side, it looks like Secretary of State Katie Hobbs is likely to be the Democratic nominee for governor. On the Republican side, we've got Carrie Lake, ultra MAGA loon. It boasted the other day that every time, Donald Trump loves to talk to her because every time he picks up the phone, she says, how are we going to prevent him from stealing it again? So she's a big lie, January 6th proponent, running against Karen Robson, very wealthy developer. In today's context, I guess, Jeff, is a moderate, right? She's backed by Doug Ducey, the sitting governor, the McCain wing, the sort of establishment wing, such as it is of the Republican Party. And then on the Senate side, before we go on, it looks like Blake Masters, protege of Peter Thiel, and just sort of, this uber tech guy who pretends isn't a tech guy, right, is likely to win for the Republican Senate nomination. So let's start with the governor, and then let's move on to Masters and his ilk.
Well, it certainly looks like Trump's influence. I mean, Trump's influence has, without question, been the overriding factor in Arizona, as it is everywhere else. Whether or not his endorsement of Carrie Lake carries the day and defeats Karen Robson, but Karen Robson has cozied up to that MAGA line as much as she can, trying to get in position to win. I mean, she has the endorsement of Governor Ducey. She has the endorsement of Cindy McCain and some of the traditional Arizona Republican wing of the party. However, her rhetoric has been trying to appease the MAGA crowd. For instance, she wouldn't say whether she thought the 2020 election should have been certified. She won't say whether or not she would be in position to automatically certify the election in 2024, even if it looks like Joe Biden or the Democratic nominee has won Arizona. So she's equivocating on the big lie in an effort to try to not, I guess, erode any traction that she might be able to gain in her race against Carrie Lake. Polling over the last month has shown Carrie Lake with a consistent lead, though Robson has been gaining. They're running a good campaign, a solid campaign. She's got folks like Danny Diaz and others. A very solid professional team who's able to
for a long time.
In this environment, doing and saying the right things that she needs to do to win. It looks like her momentum is going to leave her a little bit short, though I don't think anybody should be absolutely stunned if she does pull off a close victory. It's not likely, but if she does, it really does mean more about the local factors, that the local support and endorsements, and the fact that she was able to sufficiently blur the lines on some of the big MAGA issues, not that she repudiated the big MAGA issues.
Well, and before we move on to the Senate race, I think that, this is where I think, we talked a little bit about this earlier today. And for folks out there, if you live in Arizona, if you live in Michigan, if you live in Pennsylvania, if you live in these places in Nevada, right? If you live in these places where these ultra MAGA candidates are running, do not believe anybody that says these people are too crazy to win, right? That's 2015 thinking, right? Donald Trump comes down an elevator. He's a charlatan, been a goon forever, says these crazy things. No possible way he can win the nomination. No possible way he can be president. Right, guys? Don't let your memory be that short. Don't let your imagination shrink. Right? These people can win. They absolutely can win, and they will do everything they can. I think, Jeff, to your point though, is just like with Tudor Dixon, a Karen Robson. The old style of sort of, running to the right in your primary and moving back to the middle. The problem is that you have to choose, right? A Robson has to choose, just like a Dixon has to choose, because the MAGA, the ultra MAGA, they're uncompromising. You can't, they're not willing to soften up for you, right? because they're nihilists ultimately. As I said, they don't care about the party necessarily; they care about a movement, and I think that's a really important distinction. Carrie Lake is one where, just like Doug Mastriano, when given the chance, will never moderate. She'll only double and triple down, which we've seen with Mastriano, right? Has Mastriano, moved back to the middle since he won his primary? No. In fact, he hired this guy from this Gab deal, whatever the hell that is, right? Who's like an ultimate anti-Semite, right? Who makes anti-Semitic statements, right? So they know either they're true believers and they just can't do it, or they know that they're cynics and they won't do it because they know as soon as they start to take tiptoe tack back towards the middle, those people stay home. And so I think, as we move now to the Senate race, you've got a Blake Masters, right? Blake Masters, another educated guy, right? Worked for Peter Thiel, right? Very wealthy billionaire who's also backing JD Vance in Ohio. He says crazy ass things all day. Polling shows him down, I don't know, like 7-8 points to Mark Kelly, who's the sitting Democratic senator. So give us a sense of Masters, because Masters is like, he's the cynic, but he's not very good at it, right? And the more he tries it, the worse it looks.
Right. I mean, you mentioned JD Vance, and he really does seem to be JD Vance light in terms of the way he's doing this. He's saying all these things, but he's out talking the MAGA talking points, but he doesn't do them. He doesn't seem to believe them any more than JD Vance does, and it comes across. It's been sufficient to keep him in a solid lead in the Republican primary, but he seems to be an uncomfortable and awkward candidate for the general election as a result of it. And when Mitch McConnell and team are looking at opportunities, I think, certainly they're seeing the Herschel Walker in Georgia as a less and less likely opportunity for them. Right. And they might have to be moving Arizona into that. The matchup between Kelly and Masters has consistently shown Kelly with a solid lead, and Kelly has just been raising so much damn money. Right. They've got to keep some offense going here. They can't just circle the wagons if they hope to gain seats. And so they're right. Already defending territory in Ohio. They're defending territory in Pennsylvania. We have to assume they're going to continue to pump money into places like Arizona to try to keep it close in case the climate, the macro environment erodes any worse or any more against Biden than the Democrats, any more in the Republicans' favor. I think they have a big calculation there in the Senate race. If Robeson wins the governor's primary, it's a whole different ballgame in the Senate right. race than if Carrie Lake wins. And then it's just going to be crazy and crazier at the top of the ticket if Carrie Lake and Masters wins. If Robeson wins, you're going to see Masters try to make that pivot, to a more moderated stance in a general election. However, like you said earlier, there is no forgiving. There's the MAGA base that they will need intact to win is demands orthodoxy, and so mm-hmm. they're not going to go along with that pivot. And so,
if you see a Robson Masters makeup, it's a little bit like Kemp and Walker in Georgia or Mastriano and Oz in Pennsylvania, which is like they don't want to be within 200 nautical miles of one another, right? Because the Brian Kemps of the world or the Karen Robsons of the world, don't want to be tagged with the ultra MAGA when they think they could probably win enough independent traditional Republicans such as they are. Mastriano is a little bit different, which is, Oz is such an albatross, right? Like he doesn't want to be anywhere near that guy because he probably hurts him with the ultra MAGA, not with establishment voters, although I think he's got his own problems. All right, so let's move on to Washington State. So there's a couple of U.S. House races up there tomorrow.
There's two incumbent Republicans who voted for impeachment, who are under the gun from Trump endorsed MAGA candidates running at them from. I'm trying to figure out what just run of the mill MAGA is versus now the ultra MAGA, but that's how they're billing themselves.
I think Joe Kemp would be ultra MAGA.
Ultra. Right. And so there, and I should mention also in Michigan tomorrow, Peter Meyer, freshman congressman who voted for impeachment, looks poised to lose his primary only in because of the impeachment vote. He's been a reliable vote for Kevin McCarthy on every single thing else except that impeachment vote. And the same really goes for Herrera Butler and the other incumbent in Washington State. It appears that that the impeachment vote might be currency enough to cause these incumbents to lose, no matter how otherwise orthodox they are with the Republican leadership, with Donald Trump when he was in office. And so I think the Michigan race, Peter Meyer is likely to go down. There's other factors at play in the Washington races, though I don't think anybody should be shocked if these impeachment Republicans go down only because of that impeachment vote. It's that powerful in the Republican base.
Well, and I think, too, it's important. So there were 10 Republican members of the U.S. House that voted to impeach Donald Trump after January 6th. Adam Kinzinger was drawn out of his district. Anthony Gonzalez said, I don't want anything to do with this. And so, and you talked about the two. You talked about Meyer. You talked about the two in Washington State. Liz Cheney's got her primary coming up.
Yeah, Fred Upton retired rather than
Fred Upton retired. Right. So I would say that there's a really good chance that there's going to be a 20-seat swing to MAGA, right? Just based on those people. They're all going to be gone for the most part. I mean, Liz still has her primary to come in a couple of weeks, but you could very well see that the people who stood on principle will be gone. They will be washed out of the GOP, and they will be replaced by people far more insane than they are, right? Even if they were 95% Republican voters, in the U.S. House, Jeff, they're being replaced by people who we don't know what they are. We know what they are. We don't have a sense of what they'll do. And I think that's also, we heard through the grapevine, right, that Kevin McCarthy was given this cockamamie speech to donors, like, I just need 20 more solid, moderate Republicans to make sure that I keep the crazy at bay. Well, dude, you just lost 10. So now you're down at least 30, right, if not more. And so, Kevin McCarthy may be speaker, but he'll be speaker in name only, right? He'll be spino or spineless, I guess we should call him, which is like he's not going to be able to control anything. He will have to continue to try and ride the tiger. I still think, Jeff, if Republicans take the House, he's not going to be speaker because I think the knives will all come for him. And, as we know, too, and these people don't care, right? Oh, Kevin raises all the money. I don't care. I can raise my own money. I don't need you for that. And I don't have to bow to a bunch of corporate people I don't like anyway. So, all right. So, Jeff, let's talk about Missouri for a second. Missouri is a southern state. We should always remind people of that. It is a conservative state. And its U.S. Senate primary has been one of crazy, crazier, and craziest. Craziest being a guy named Eric Greitens, former disgraced governor, who was leading the charge for a while, made some really, I hate to use the word unbelievable, Jeff, because I'd like to believe that I believe everything I see. Basically heavily armed men in battle rattle hunting rhinos. And everybody's come for this guy, and he's a bad person. He's a sociopath. So just look at the things that drove him out of office, or look at the things his ex-wife says about him. So it looks like he's faded. So tell us a little bit more about that primary, and then what we could see in the general, which is interesting.
Yeah, well, it looks like Greitens has faded, and there's been a few polls in the last week that show him falling as far as third, not out of contention. But that doesn't mean that sanity prevails. It just means that the guy who's arguably involved in criminal sociopathic behavior doesn't win. But it's a low bar these days, Jeff. Yeah. Well, I mean, so what we're likely to have is the attorney general, who is an election denier, full-blown MAGA horse paste eating kook, who's
Right.
going to come through that primary. It looks like. Former governor, former U.S. Senator John Danforth, who's kind of the grand old man of Republican politics, was initially responsible for Josh Hawley's rise, initially responsible for Greitens' rise way back when, before
Right.
Greitens revealed himself in the governor's office. Has recruited a independent candidate and is going to has raised the money. We're talking $10 to $20 million to run an independent candidacy here with a James Woods, who's been a counsel to the January 6th committee on the Republican side,
Right.
comes from that traditional wing, the Danforth wing of the Republican Party, somebody who would likely align or vote and maybe even caucus with Republicans, but wouldn't be MAGA, wouldn't be beholden to, at least at this point, to Mitch McConnell and the Republican leadership. And so that makes this Missouri race very interesting, because it's not likely a state where a Democrat could win, although it's been fairly recent. Claire McCaskill held that
Claire McCaskill, sure.
until Josh Hawley did. And so this could set up an opportunity for the Democratic nominee, or there is an outside chance that the independent candidate, if everything were to play out right here, could catch lightning in a bottle. Though that looks less like it looks like in Missouri, the independent candidate is likely to play spoiler if the Republicans were to lose. So prognosticators need to, when they look at who's going to control the Senate, need to look at Missouri, just like they need to look at Utah, where there's these independent candidacies that could topple the Republican majorities that need to be factored in. Missouri hasn't been on anybody's radar screen other than does Greitens win, but it really does play into the calculus of who controls the Senate and how that control manifests itself.
Well, and I think this is a really important point, because you mentioned Utah also, which is when McConnell is thinking about, okay, how do I get to 51, Jeff, 52, whatever it is, 51 at least. Mm-hmm. All the states, like Utah and Missouri, should not be on his list of places to worry about, but now they are. Mm-hmm. Pennsylvania, right? He got Oz, which nobody likes, right? And I would say this is that John Fetterman is running the best front porch campaign since James A. Garfield, right? Herschel Walker is a debacle as a candidate, and Raphael Warnock is an exceptional candidate in a state like Georgia. And so now he's like, oh God, what have I got to do? And so, he's got Nevada, right? But that's Adam Laxalt. That guy's no clear winner, because he's got plenty of stuff that's going to come down on him. As you said, you got Masters. JD Vance is not a throwaway, right? Not only is he literally not raising any money, right? I think he raised $1 million in the second quarter, which, guys, for a top tier Senate race, even if you've got a big benefactor like Peter Thiel, like, people should be pouring money into that race, right, to save the seat. And Tim Ryan's running a good race. And so, like, McConnell's like, where the hell do I go, right? Because look, let's not get too far over our skis here. But like, you could see a situation where like he's not up 2, but he's down like 4 all of a sudden. Right.
It could happen, right? But and they're also playing defense in North Carolina, where the Democrats have an exceptional candidate in former Supreme Court Justice Beasley, running against Congressman Budd, running as a full MAGA. And so, and one legitimate offense opportunity for McConnell and the Republicans is Jeanne Shaheen, Maggie Hassan in New Hampshire. But they're also,
but even there, their top tier candidate, the governor, said, and remember, Jeff, he didn't tell McConnell, he didn't tell anybody in Washington. He just came and made a statement like, I'm out. I'm not going to run for the United States Senate. Now, and really, can you blame him? Right. But this is, I think, an important point, which is, in 2020, we thought that we could, we helped take out 4 Republican senators, right, that had gone sort of full MAGA. But the people that we really wanted, to get rid of, in Alaska, Montana, and these other places, Maine, Susan Collins, who continues to show why she should not be anywhere within, a country mile of any real responsibility as an adult. They all got across the line. And Stuart Stevens made a point, which I think is important and I think might be playing out in real time here, which is those senators, they were all in office already, I think. But they were also still normal enough that a Republican voter could say, if I got to make a choice, I'm okay with this person, right? But I think the difference now is with Oz, Herschel, Vance, Masters, Laxalt, Greitens, or another kook, right? Mike Lee, who's very unpopular, even in Utah where I live, right? These people are now the worst nightmare for Mitch McConnell since 2010, which is they are not normal enough to just skate across the line, even in some pretty conservative or battleground states.
Right. And McConnell in the Senate, the Republican Senate world, is going to suffer with the same conundrum that the Republican Governors Association is suffering from. They want Glenn Youngkins. They want these. They wanted Dave McCormick out of Pennsylvania. They wanted people who fit that bill, who walk the MAGA line, but also can eat with a fork and can mingle in polite society. But they didn't get that. And so that's why they're in trouble. Right. And that's why McConnell, I mean, they're saying with a straight face that they're looking to expand the playing field to Washington State and Colorado, that they can beat Patty Murray and that they can beat Michael Bennett. They cannot
beat those people.
No, they can't. But they're trying to say it with a straight face that they're going to open up lines, offensive campaigns there, and force the Democrats to spend money in those states that will, then shift money out of North Carolina and
But that's. I mean, strategically, Jeff, don't you think that that's a decision based on desperation? We got no place else to go. Let's throw some spaghetti at the wall and hope to God something sticks.
Yeah, right. I mean, it's a pipe dream. They're envisioning this meltdown of the macro environment for the Democrats. $6 gas or something like that. That's going to give them the opportunity to pick up a seat in Washington State. And I don't think a Republican has won in Washington State in more than 30 years.
It would be what's his name? What's his name? The Skeletor-looking guy. Slade Gordon.
Yeah, Slade Gordon. Yeah, way back when. It's been a long time since his last election. They came close in the governor's race and the Senate race with Dino Rossi, but close doesn't.
Right, got very close. Right. It's only horseshoes and hand grenades, right?
Exactly. And so the fact of the matter, at least on the Senate side and on the governor's side, that I'd much rather be in the position of Democrats than the Republicans. The Democrats are holding the upper hand in these governor's races in states like Pennsylvania, in states like Michigan, Wisconsin, Nevada. However, when you go back to what we said earlier, the danger is assuming these people can't win. It's not likely that the Democrats are going to run the table and that none of them win. Right. That Doug Mastriano doesn't pull something off, or that one of the Republicans vying to take on Tony Evers doesn't somehow best him. Somewhere along the way, somebody's going to get snake bit, and that's bad for democracy, because all it takes is one of these big states, one of the existential states, as we call them, Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin, and suddenly the 2024 electoral vote is in serious jeopardy because there is a MAGA with his thumb on the scale, or her thumb on the scale, that can take one of these essential states for a Democratic majority, for a pro-democracy American majority to win in 2024. Right. And that's that the Democrats win everything is unlikely.
Right. And I think the other part too is that you see that, a lot of Democrats lamenting that President Biden's approval ratings are in the 30s. Okay. You never want to be in the 30s. But we may have transcended a space in this country, not to be too nerdy about it, Jeff, where like American presidents are not like American presidents, right? Like the closer to 50 you are, like you have all these magical powers, but more like France, right? Like the French don't like anybody. right? If you're a 25, if Emmanuel Macron is a 25 in France, like, he's a hero, right? But we also see that there is, unlike many other years, and remember that every year in politics now in this country is vastly different than the last, that voters writ large don't seem to be punishing other Democratic candidates for Joe Biden's low approval. And I think the difference is here, and I saw this a little bit when I worked in California with Arnold Schwarzenegger, was even when Schwarzenegger's numbers were bad, Californians didn't hate him, right? And I think that's a lot of the difference too, is that even when Joe Biden's numbers are bad, like the ultra MAGA may do the Let's Go Brandon silliness, right, and FJB and all this other stuff, but most Americans know in their core that Joe Biden is a fundamentally decent guy, right? He's doing a good job, a better job than you could expect, right? Especially with some of this legislation that's likely to get passed, than anyone could have expected. And so I think that and then the flip side is, as we saw with the difference between now and 2020 is Republicans don't talk about the future. They don't talk about what they want to do for individuals. They just do ultra MAGA ugliness, culture war all the time. And voters are smart enough to understand, like, when they see a charlatan. Now, enough of them, saw it in Donald Trump, but that's what they wanted, right? They wanted that sort of vast difference. I'm not sure that having 4 years of it, 7 years of it, if you include when he first came down the escalator, that a lot of Americans necessarily want that. Now, again, that doesn't mean we should underestimate the, inflation, gas prices, all of the other, we've got a war on, right, in Europe of all places. So there's plenty of stuff going on that you're right. We should not expect Democrats to run the table. But if you said to us 9 months ago that on August 1st, with 99 days to go, the Democrats would be in fighting shape, to hold the Senate and hold these key governor's races and maybe not do quite as badly in the House as we thought, I don't know that we might have quietly agreed with you, but I don't know that we would have been shouting it to the mountaintops.
No, I think that the macro environment has changed appreciably in the Dobbs Roe overturning decision. Probably the catalyst in boosting Democratic enthusiasm that has changed this, but it's likely brought it back to kind of more neutral footing. It's not like it's blunted the Republican advantage that existed because of economic factors. But it's not like it's at least at this point blowing in the Democratic favor. I've seen people overreacting to this thing. Well, now, women are going to be turning out like crazy. Young people are going to be turning out like crazy. Let's not get ahead of ourselves here, folks. There's a lot of
and also, like, you shouldn't make those assumptions. They don't turn out without somebody saying, "I need you to come turn out." Right.
Absolutely. And the messaging still matters, and there's still too many Democratic campaigns across the country that are relying on policy positions and white papers rather than acknowledging that they're in a existential culture war for the soul of democracy. And they've got to get, I guess, up to the task of fighting the fight that's before us, not the fight that they'd prefer to fight, which is sitting around arguing policy positions.
Well, and like, who's going to run for president in 2024? Nobody knows. It's going to take care of itself, right? So don't worry about that stuff right now. All right. Well, Jeff, I want to thank you for letting me sit in the host chair today. Guys, just so you know, we just posted our 100-day strategy memo to our website, lincolnproject.us. We need you to get involved. We need you to join the 50,000 plus volunteers that have already signed up. Join the union.us. Need you to do that today. Need you to tune into the fight we're in with Trigvi and Maya that'll air, I believe, tonight. The breakdown with Rick and Tara Thursday nights. We're speaking on Wednesday nights with Lisa and Maya. And of course, please check out the Lincoln Project podcast hosted by yours truly. Very proud of the work that we're doing across the board here, gang. We cannot do this without you. American democracy depends on your work, on our work, and doing all this together. So please get involved and do these things. Jeff, as always, I want to say thank you for your strategic insight and your leadership with Trigvi on our political team. They're doing incredible work, gang, and I think you're going to see the fruits of their labor come 99 days from today. With that, we're going to send you off with our 100-day video. Thanks to everybody, and we'll see you next week.
The world is a very angry place if you look all over the world.
Let's ride for 45!
There's no amount
of sycophancy that will be enough for this man.
Your family will not be safe.
It can only be my personality, that's all.
The news division didn't used to have to make a profit. Then that changed.
All those people in the back are fake news.
You are the enemy of the people.
It's really hard to come out and say I'm a Republican because immediately they think that you're people.
But we're not the suckers anymore.
We should have never gotten in bed with the Republican Party.
I am the chosen one.
Most politicians right now react on fear, not on courage.
Very fine people on both sides.
Your America's gone, motherfucker.
Say to Americans who are watching you right now who are scared?
I say that you're a terrible reporter. That's what I say.
The only way we're going to lose this election is if the election is rigged.
He knows that's what it takes to raise an army of patriots who love America and will protect her.
You won't be safe in Joe Biden's America.
I'm a Republican, but I call myself a Trumpican.
Our way of life will be preserved and maintained. So help us God. Guns up!
This can't be our country. This is not our country.
Alleged plot to kidnap Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer.
We are not one another's enemy. This virus is our enemy.
No religion, no anything. Hurt the Bible, hurt God.
You shut up, man.
Biden raped his daughter. Biden raped.
Election day in America. It is here.
Former Vice President Joe Biden will win. This is an embarrassment to our country.
2020 election was the most secure in U.S. history.
If you count the legal votes, I easily win.
You all knew it was coming. Could have set your watches to it.
A number of House members plan to object
To the final certification of Joe Biden's victory.
Leaders of Congress are misleading people daily in this by not pushing back.
President Trump's baseless claims of fraud are fueling his supporters.
That's why Republican silence is so deafening right now.
Careful what you
We will not take it anymore.
You can feel the rage, the madness.
Let's have trial by combat. Insurrection!
We can take that place.
We're seeing protesters overcome the police.
They were terrorists.
An example needs to be made.
They tried to disrupt this country's democracy.
Trump and I, we've had a hell of a journey. I hate it being this way.
Careful what you wish for.
Donald J. Trump ain't going anywhere.
We have the Republican Party.